I can say, yeah, as far back as my memory goes, I mean, I've always known that that was what my ability was, and I was fortunate that I had people in my life that told me. I'm Dan Tyminski, and this is my Bluegrass Story. I remember my dad years ago playing me some reel-to-reel tapes of what ended up being me. I asked him who the little girl was singing. Sounded like a very, very teeny tiny little girl's voice. I think it was me when I was 3 or 4. I had parents that were both from really huge families, and they fought a lot. They just didn't know how to communicate well with each other, so there was a lot of tension growing up. I spent a lot of my time really trying to get away from that. Somehow I think it made me really dive deeper into the music than I probably ever would have. You know, when I would hear the tensions build, I went to music. I went to my room and I did my thing, and I found that the deeper I dove in, the less the world around me mattered, man. It all became, there got to be a point where it was just all about music. Oh, what I'm holding today is the prototype model number 1 of the Dan Tyminski model Martin guitar. When they approached me about wanting to help collaborate on a model, I think I've said this before in interviews, but that was like when I felt like I'd made it. Like that was a really big deal. For something like this to be included at the Bluegrass Music Hall of Fame and Museum, I can't even say enough about. I mean, I didn't come across bluegrass music, in my spare time. I mean, I'm a lifer. That is all I've ever done. It's what I live for. It's what I hear when I wake up. It's what I think about through the day. And this gives me a connection to the Music Hall of Fame and Museum that will always be precious to me. I mean, it looked like for me that the one thing that my parents did do, that really was great for me is they went to hear live music every weekend somewhere. I mean, this was back when you could bring a 6-year-old into a country bar, and no one, it seemed normal at the time, but I heard music every weekend somewhere. So then when it kind of transitioned to where we started going to a few more bluegrass festivals, and the bluegrass festivals kind of became the bulk of what we did for our music travel. And once I discovered the bluegrass festivals, I discovered a community of people that I felt so safe with, and I felt so much love, and I was really nurtured as a musician in my early years from all those bluegrass festivals in the Northeast that we would travel to. I was absolutely built at the bluegrass festivals.
Whiskey brown, smell of sweet temptation, curves all up and down the road to my salvation. And she sings to me with every note in perfect harmony. And off I go, keep your eye on Kentucky, where the hollers and the hills of bluegrass free. Yeah, tonight I'm feeling lucky, there ain't no place that I would rather be. Up on Heaven Hill, I'll go for roses wild. back porch, just me and Elmer T. Or let me breathe the angels share with Pappy and Jim B. And I'll drag out my old banjo and pick one fast and drink one slow. Keep your eye on Kentucky, where the hollers and the hills are bluegrass green. Yeah, tonight I'm feeling lucky, 'cause there ain't no place that I would rather be. Up on Heaven Hill, I'll go for Rose's Wild, floating down Knob Creek in a maker's redneck style. Keep your eye on Kentucky. Keep your eye on Kentucky. Eye on Kentucky.
Horses, bourbon, and the great outdoors. That's Kentucky. Original, majestic, and wide open. In one day, visit legendary distilleries, explore horse country, or put on your hiking shoes and get out there. This is Kentucky. Come see for yourself. Plan your road trip at KentuckyTourism.com.
Hey everybody, I'm Dan Tyminski. My favorite magazine is Bluegrass Unlimited. It can be yours too.
Get your subscription to Bluegrass Unlimited, the monthly print publication of bluegrass music since 1966. Bluegrass Unlimited includes feature articles on bluegrass history and tradition, current artists and bands, and so much more. Subscribe today online at bluegrassunlimited.com. And if you subscribe today using code MyBluegrassStory, you'll save 15% of the regular subscription rate.
The Bluegrass Music Hall of Fame and Museum, located in beautiful Owensboro, Kentucky, is your destination for bluegrass music. With interactive exhibits, you'll learn about the early innovators of the music, like Bill Monroe and Flatt & Scruggs. But you'll also discover the artists of today who are following in their footsteps. But that's just the beginning. Experience the music behind the exhibits by playing music in our pick-and parlor and by enjoying a live show in our beautiful theater. Appearing soon at the Hall of Fame, Darren and Brooke Aldridge on April 23rd, Daly and Vincent on May 6th, and Dan Tyminski on May 14th. Use the promo code on your screen to save on concert tickets at bluegrasshall.org. And when visiting the Bluegrass Music Hall of Fame and Museum, be sure to check out the exhibit highlighting the artists featured on the television show My Bluegrass Story. Plan your trip to Owensboro, Kentucky today and discover your bluegrass story. Learn more at bluegrasshall.org.
I first took a job at the Lonesome River Band where I took a job as a banjo player. And at the time, I think it was Brian Fessler and Adam Steffi were just leaving the band and they needed two positions. And I remember Tim Austin asking if I would consider play mandolin because it might be easier for me to sing and play the mandolin rather than sing and play banjo. He says, you know, you can't sing and play the banjo, which I was thinking, Dave Evans. It worked out to where I said, I'll try the mandolin. And I played mandolin for, about 5 years with the Lonesome River Band, made some records that, that was some of the most fun I had playing music in those early years was with the Lonesome River Band. But then I got a call to play guitar, and that was a new one for me. Like I had never really spent a lot of time with a guitar. I could play a G, C, and D, but I didn't own a guitar. It wasn't any part of my life until Alison Krauss got to a point where, and I had been friends with the band. I always wanted to be the banjo player in ACUS. That was I remember where I was sitting the day I found out Ron Block got the job. And I was like, you're kidding me. Like I was heartbroken. I was crushed because I thought, well, there goes my shot, to ever be with that band. And I didn't know that there were different plans for me in the stars. The Coen brothers were coming to town and they were recruiting some people in Nashville to play on a soundtrack for this movie they were doing that was a take on Homer's Odyssey. And when we got the word, we were so excited as a band, we being Allison and Union Station, because we were huge Coen Brothers fans. We loved their movies. We thought, wow, to be a part of the soundtrack would be amazing. So we go in to do our audition, just like everyone else, we auditioned. And I remember we finished our song. The mood was great. And I remember our manager saying to T-Bone, hey, have you cast Clooney's voice yet? Because Dan might be a candidate. And I remember thinking, okay, whatever. At this point, I'm living such a crazy life, playing bigger shows than I ever thought I would, doing more than I ever thought I could do in music. I remembered I had a much different version of Man of Constant Sorrow than people became familiar with, from how I did it. I think I did it in B chord. I did it way higher. I did it way faster. I did it completely different than it ended up being in the movie. But I sang the song, and I remember just as the song was dying out, I didn't really get to finish. I'd hit the last chord. It was all through his days, and I sang the chord. And in walks the Fairfield Four, who were a big part of that soundtrack, if you're familiar with the soundtrack. So the Fairfield Four, they walk through literally singing, they're just filling this room with the most music. It honestly, it made me feel so small. Like I just felt teeny tiny, like, why am I here? Like this is not here. Yeah, like I get why they're here. I don't get why I'm here. In my mind, I don't sound like George Clooney. It didn't make any sense to me, right? So they finished their song, and everyone was, clapping. It was great, and their hugs, and how you doing? So great to see you. And they looked over at me, they said, hey, thanks, Dan, we'll call you. And, and I kind of meeked out of the room. Only the next day they called me. T-Bone called and said, hey, he says, we've been talking it over, and when we see George Clooney, we hear your voice. What do you think? You want to give this a shot? So I record the song, and I found out after we were recording it that it had to be, one take. It had to be no fixes. I couldn't punch anything in, no overdubs. It was just playing, just organic, just pure music. Just play it one time through, whatever happens, happens. So I played it one time through, about 75 times. They said they love it, and I thought, well, okay, if you're happy, I guess I'm happy. This is the weirdest thing I've ever done, okay, yeehaw. And then they asked if we want to be in the film, and I think, well, of course we want to be in the film. How would you say no to that? So we were shooting in Vicksburg, Mississippi, and there we did a couple days of the scenes where the band on stage when they're riding the guy out on the rail, and T-Bone says to me on a day off, he says, George wants to sing this song. Would you go in the studio with him and sing it? And this is where, in my silly mind, this is where I thought, jackpot, I get to do this with Clooney. This is great, like best ever. So I go into the studio, and contrary to what I've heard people say, I can't understand why, George can sing. He could have sang this. He has a nice voice. He had no problem singing it. I think what it was is we had already had our version done, and it was just completed. So anyway, I went in, I played it, and he sang it, and he messed the words up. Or he made a mistake, sang a wrong word. He said, wait, start it one more time. And I started one more time, and he got didn't even get as far, and he messed a word up. He's like, wait, start it one more time, because all he knew was it had to be one take, organic, no fixes. Well, after 2 or 3 times, he took his headphones off and walked out, and he says, I don't know what we're doing in here. He says, this is a day off. He said, Dan, I'll make you a deal. He said, I'll act and you sing. And he put his hand out like that. And my hopes and my dreams, and they just crushed and fell to the floor. And I thought, well, there goes my shot, man. It was really, I was sincerely bummed. It was not a good moment. And I didn't think anything of it. And then, of course, the movie comes out, and I watch the movie, and I'm sinking sinking down in the seat in the movie theater, because it's so weird. And then, a little time goes by, and our manager said, royalties are coming out for this, and it looks like you're going to make a little money. And I'm like, great. And in my mind, I'm like, anything will help. I'm broke ass. Like I'm at a point where I'm still dealing with bill collectors and turning off my lights and trying to just because as you make so much money playing bluegrass music. Our manager, she called me into the office. She said, come on in. I was like, okay. And she handed me an envelope. She said, got something for you, and I just looked at it, and I remember looking at it and looking at it and looking at it and looking at it and looking at her thinking, so, when do you divvy this up, man? How does this spread out? No, she's like, she goes, and that's probably not going to be the biggest one. And I looked and I said, what are you talking about? She says, well, you got points on the record for, and I had two cuts. I had a solo cut and a band cut. whatever. So I played bluegrass music, man. I don't know what points were on a record. It didn't make any sense, points. All I knew was I got to go and pay off my house and buy new cars and get out of debt and pay off credit. I mean, in one check, my life completely turned around. I was dumbfounded and then didn't realize until after. Had George Clooney sang that song, I would have made the $350 session fee or whatever it was, and never seen another thing. So him graciously deciding not to sing that song was probably the biggest, it was easily the biggest monetary thing that could have ever happened to a guy like me. I mean,
in the heart of bluegrass country, on the banks of the Ohio River, there's a place where healthcare is different, where it's woven into the very fabric of our local communities, where doctors practice more than medicine. They practice living. Here, everyone cares for the patient and treats them like a neighbor, because they are one. This place is called Owensboro Health, where a healthier community is what we do.
There's a city where a river of music flows, where you're invited to discover its deep roots in bluegrass music and heritage and harmonies converge. It's a community that's just like the music it's home to, welcoming and authentic. This is Owensboro, Kentucky. This is the bluegrass music capital of the world.
On June 22nd to 25th, 2022, ROMP Festival takes place in Owensboro, Kentucky. Produced by the Bluegrass Music Hall of Fame and Museum, ROMP features 4 days of music, camping, jamming, and much more. Immerse yourself in bluegrass music by experiencing live performances from over 25 artists. Plan your trip to ROMP Festival in Owensboro, Kentucky on June 22nd to 25th, 2022. More information about ROMP can be found at rompfest.com.
Well, I've cursed at Jesus with smoke on my breath. I gave him every reason to leave me for dead. Thank God I didn't, 'cause I swear I believe there's a place up in heaven for a God-fearing heathen like me. And I know the streets of gold ain't just paid for the soul of the straight walking saints that don't swear, smoke, or drink. It's for the losers and the winners, hard-living sinners, and God-fearing heathens like me. Heathens like me. Well, I've danced with my demons when there's nowhere to run. Could have stood in the darkness and loaded the gun. But I prayed holes in the knees of these old faded jeans for a place up in heaven for a God-fearing heathen like me. And I know those streets of gold ain't just for the soul of the straight walking saints that don't swear, smoke, or drink. It's for the losers and the winners, and hard-living sinners, and God-fearing heathens like me. Cursed at Jesus with smoke on my breath. I gave him every reason to leave me for dead.
God-fearing heathen was my self-analysis. I was sitting on the back deck, and we were in a point where we were getting ready, we were talking about changing, agents and management and what I was, going to be recording. We said, maybe you need a new bio if we're going to get back, COVID's getting done. What are we going to do? They said, and my woman said, describe yourself in as few words as you can. And I happened to be on the deck at that particular point. I happened to, I had a cigar in this hand, and I had a glass of bourbon in this hand. I had just poured a little drink of bourbon, and I was sitting there, and I looked and I looked back up. I said, I don't know, I'm a God-fearing heathen. And when I said it, and she looked at me, and I went, and I put everything down. I grabbed my phone, which is where all my ideas go, right? And I wrote it down. I have a very good friend in Nashville who's written many, many hit songs. Ira Dean, if you know Ira, he was a bass player in a band called Trick Pony, a country band years back. I thought Ira had the type of background that really would understand what I was coming from when I said that I was a God-fearing heathen, because I'm not saying I'm a heathen, but we all do things, I was sitting there with a drink and a smoke, So I thought that he would be a good person for that title, and it took him a couple weeks before he got to the house to write this song with me. But when he finally got there, I felt like that was one of the songs that just kind of wrote itself. He was the perfect match. I think it's a song that I want everybody to hear. I want everyone to really take into consideration what that song means.
The Bluegrass Music Hall of Fame and Museum, located in beautiful Owensboro, Kentucky, is your destination for bluegrass music. With interactive exhibits, you'll learn about the early innovators of the music, like Bill Monroe and Flatt and Scruggs, but you'll also discover the artists of today who are following in their footsteps. But that's just the beginning. Experience the music behind the exhibits by playing music in our pick-and parlor and by enjoying a live show in our beautiful theater. Appearing soon at the Hall of Fame, Darren and Brooke Aldridge on April 23rd, Daly and Vincent on May 6th, and Dan Tyminski on May 14th. Use the promo code on your screen to save on concert tickets at bluegrasshall.org. And when visiting the Bluegrass Music Hall of Fame and Museum, be sure to check out the exhibit highlighting the artists featured on the television show My Bluegrass Story. Plan your trip to Owensboro, Kentucky today and discover your bluegrass story. Learn more at bluegrasshall.org.
American Patriot Getaways has cabin rentals in Gatlinburg for any group size or budget. From a romantic studio for two to a 13-bedroom chalet, we can help you make memories any time of year. Break away from the everyday and take in the fresh mountain air from our cabin rentals in Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge. Enjoy luxurious amenities like a steamy hot tub, exciting game room, breathtaking views, or even a private indoor pool. Find your favorite cabin rentals in Gatlinburg today.
Whiskey song. Surprise, surprise. Why would I settle down when I'm this good at rambling round? I follow my heart the best I can. I'm a slow sun sinking, good time thinking, whiskey drinking man.
I've had some wildly crazy things happen to me. I mean, I don't think I'm the voice I hear when I think of bluegrass music, but I'm thrilled to think that anyone would associate when they hear my voice that I would be synonymous with the music that has made me who I am. That's an honor. Well, it's been a pleasure to get to do it here at the Bluegrass Music Hall of Fame and Museum. I mean, it's what a place, what a home for our music. To be able to have some place that you can say, this is where I belong. I grew up in a place where bluegrass music was not as popular as some of the places like around here in Owensboro, and I would have given anything to find, if I thought there would be someplace there I could say, this is home. For me, it was the Bluegrass Festivals. For the rest of the world, it's here in Owensboro, Kentucky.